Hello guys and welcome back to Mental Health Monday. So I don't know why I feel really nervous about making today's video, but for some reason I do, and it's taken me a lot longer to get myself in the mood to film. I don't know what it is, maybe it's just because it's a dreary Monday morning, but nonetheless I am going to do a self-harm Q&A for you guys today. So I put out on my Instagram if you had any questions that you wanted me to answer on the topic of self-harm, because I feel like it's always one of my most popular topics that I talk about. It's something I've been through myself. So yeah, I left it down to you and I'm going to answer as many questions as possible as I can in this video. It's going to be quite long. So if you want to go and grab yourself a drink and some snacks, then now is your chance to do it. We're just going to jump straight in to the questions. Let's go. First question was best distraction methods. So there are so many things you can do to distract yourself, but I've just made a list of the things that help me. Cleaning, baking, dancing, exercising. Doesn't have to be like hardcore, it can be like just going for a walk with your dog. Thinking about the future and planning something in the future. That's what I did with my tattoos. I knew as soon as I turned 18 I wanted to have tattoos, so I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to get. Spent time on Pinterest looking at different tattoo ideas, and it kind of gave me just something to like focus on. Maybe you want to plan a holiday or whatever. Watching TV, that's one I find is a really good distraction, especially with like documentaries or something, you know, things that you might want to learn about, Blue Planet and all of that. I really find distract me and take my mind off things. I used to also Google like facts or like watch mini YouTube documentaries on interesting facts about the world, or I would literally just say to a friend, can you tell me like the weirdest facts you know, just to keep me like distracted. And I can't say I've remembered any of them, but at the time it was really useful. Puzzles, I talk about this a lot. I really love doing arrow words and crosswords and things like that. Obviously reading a book, concentration when you're kind of in that headspace is not great, so I literally just used to read children's books with like pictures and stuff like that because it's easy to read, easy to look at. Bubble bath, that kind of went either way for me because I would try my best and have a bubble bath, but then I would still end up self-harming either in the bath or when I got out of the bath. So, you know, but bubble baths are a really nice distraction. Stress ball, I always used to carry around with me, which I still have today, but I broke him. You know, one of those like, how do you describe it? It's like plastic, but it's like squidgy, and when you squidge it, it like pops out. He was like a penguin. And then you like hit it and there was like this flashing ball inside it. Anyway, it's something that you can like keep your hands occupied with. Another one is to write down how you feel, and then you may want to rip it up. And a few others which are a bit, again, not sure you want to sit down and do that when you feel like self-harming, but I thought I'd mention them because they do help me sometimes. Is either yoga, so sometimes listening to someone saying I'll do this and then you do it is helpful, and I find that with meditation as well. Like if you feel like you want to self-harm and it's because you're stressed out, Google meditations for stressed out, or you know, if you feel like it's because you're self-loathing, meditations for self-love. I also have this amazing app called Insight Timer, which they're all free on. I'll link that below as well for you. And finally, one of the things that I used to do occasionally, I say occasionally, it was suggested to me by one of my psychologists, and that was to regulate my body temperature. So like when you are kind of getting to the stage where you want to self-harm, your body temperature tends to rise and you get very agitated. It's important to like calm down and regulate your body temperature. So I used to have one of those like gel eye masks that I just kept in the fridge that I put on my eyes, and she made me write down a promise to myself on a post-it note, and I signed it saying that I would try and regulate my body temperature and try my other distraction techniques before I self-harmed. If you make a promise to yourself to do that, then often you'll find you're not really like up for it anymore. And that's the same as saying that you'll wait 5 minutes before you self-harm. Our emotions can't stay at, you know, the red zone for a long time. So instead of using self-harm to bring yourself out of the red zone, literally just wait and do something and distract yourself. Say to yourself like, I'll wait to self-harm for 5 minutes, and a lot of the time you're out of that zone by that time. The next question links in with this, and that is alternatives to self-harm when you have the urges. So there's loads of different alternatives that aren't as harmful to you, but I feel you still can get some satisfaction from them. They're not the same, obviously, but here are my faves. Number 1, popping bubble wrap, very satisfying, makes a noise. Number 2 is to draw marks with a red pen on your arm, or what I used to like to do is just doodle like on my arm, like doodle flowers, doodle whatever, write positive words along your arm or wherever you would usually self-harm. Scream into a pillow / punch it. This is very, very good for if the reason you feel like you're gonna self-harm is because you've got so much pent-up anger or sadness or whatever. Cry into a pillow, scream into a pillow, do whatever. Another one is to hold an ice cube. You still get the pain sensation there, but obviously it's not as harmful. Flick an elastic band. A lot of people just have like an elastic band on their wrist throughout the day and they just flick it when they feel like doing something. Again, you get like, you know, the pain sensation, and it also kind of keeps your hands busy. Have a cold bath or a shower. It not only regulates your body temperature, but it also gives you a bit of a shock. It might help you snap out of, you know, the mood that you're in. Another one I like to do is to clench and relax your muscles. You can do this like progressively, or if you feel you don't have time to do that, literally clench up your whole body, relax it, and do that a few times. And finally, okay, I don't want to promote this obviously. I'm going to say smoking a vape pen, which has no nicotine in it, because I don't want to promote starting smoking as an alternative to self-harm. Obviously it's better, but it's still a form of self-harm. However, if you are a smoker anyway, it's not the best thing to do, granted. However, neither is self-harm, so have a cigarette. I started smoking as a way to get over self-harm, and would not recommend obviously because it's highly addictive. However, it did calm me down in the moment. I wouldn't smoke every day. I'd only smoke when I felt I needed it. However, then I got myself a vape pen, which I could put like different flavors in and stuff, and I still got the same kind of, you know, relief from that. So don't start smoking, but if you do, have a cigarette rather than self-harm. If you don't, vape pen. The next question is products that get rid of scars. Okay, so for me, my top ones are bio oil. You guys know I love bio oil. It's been like my OG from the beginning. That's if you use it regularly. Like, remember, you've got to use these products all the time, which is why I just kind of gave up, because now I don't really care. Another really good one that I discovered by accident was, you know, the coffee scrubs you can get. So I've got one, what's it called? Bean Bod. Use any brand. Amazing for scars. They usually contain things like coconut oil, vitamin E, etc., which are really, really good for your scars as well. They make your skin really smooth. Rosehip oil, great one for fading scars. Also vitamin E oil. I've never used that one, but I've always heard that it's really good. And the other day, when I was talking about rosehip oil on my story, a girl messaged me about an oil called, and I can't pronounce this, I'm going to put it on the screen now, I did Google how to pronounce it earlier. This is like an American saying it. Let's get it up. Here we go.
Helichrysum.
Helichrysum, and then I got another one that was like helichrysum. Whatever. That oil is supposedly really good, and I read up on all the benefits. It has loads of benefits other than just scars, but apparently that is like the top of the top for scar healing. Also, in my research, I found carrot oil can be really good, lavender oil, rosemary oil, and frankincense oil. And then obviously there are things like laser therapy and that other one where they put what's that freezing stuff called on your scars. Next question. Do you ever feel ashamed of scars / cuts, and should they be covered? I wouldn't say nowadays that I'm ashamed. I would say my view towards my scars are that they're just kind of like, not a nuisance, but like just annoying. Sometimes I wish that they weren't there. I guess it's just when I like compare myself to others and I think I see their smooth arms and I just kind of wish sometimes that I had that. With cuts it's a difficult one because I've been clean so long. Say if I've relapsed in the past year, I obviously try not to think too much into it, but then I don't know if I would say I feel ashamed. I think I feel annoyed that like after all this time I still cut. And as for should they be covered scars, definitely not. No, you don't need to cover them. Cuts, fresh cuts, up for debate, I think. Let me know what you think. I personally reckon you should try your best to cover them up, but don't go above and beyond and make yourself miserable trying to please others. Obviously it's not ideal to trigger others, but it just depends what company you're in. Next question, is there such a thing as safe self-harm? Now I did have to do a bit of thinking when I got this question because I was like, obviously I get where you're coming from, but no, I'm afraid there's no safe self-harm. Harming yourself is not safe unless we're talking about like, you know, the alternatives like the rubber band and the ice cube, etc., which, you know, may cause the tiniest bit of harm to your body but are obviously safer. Although saying that, like, when it comes to safe self-harm, there are safer self-harm environments and options for you. Ugh, it's so hard to word this without being really triggering. With my self-harm, I would have rituals that I would do it and I would know what to do afterwards to clean up, etc. So I kind of knew what I was doing. I obviously thought at the time, yeah, this is totally safe, totally like under control. Obviously not. So no, like it's not safe. Just please don't do it. Next question, how to get out of a relapse? I think when it comes to relapses with self-harm, you've just got to accept that they're going to happen. That's what self-harm recovery is. I know this sounds really silly, but just don't think about it. Just literally put it out of your mind, and every time it comes up in your mind, just accept that it's there and focus your attention elsewhere. Because if you're sat there thinking about it, feeling guilty, etc., it's honestly not going to help you move on. It has happened. There's nothing you can do to change that. What you can do is change how you react. Now, if you're going to react in self-pity, oh, I can't do this, blah, 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 it's not going to help you recover. So if you just take the approach, you know, I've relapsed, it happens to everyone, literally. Otherwise, how would you learn? Pick yourself up and carry on. Next question. How to approach the topic with friends and family. So I did actually do a video on how to tell your parents if you're struggling, and that pretty much nails down everything that I would recommend. To summarize what I said in that video, it was to write down what you want to say to them, sit them down, tell them that this is what you're struggling with, and then let them know what you want from them, whether it's support, whether it's help to go and see a counsellor. And they may not understand, so it might be good to like show them videos like this, or just like articles or whatever on self-harm, because it's such a common thing nowadays. Next question, and I had a few of these, and that's basically the gist of how did you stop, how did you recover, how did you break the cycle. There's no miracle cure. I feel like it was a combination of a lot of things. Therapy being the main one. I think you've got to learn your triggers and learn to cope with whatever illness you're dealing with. You know, self-harm usually comes alongside depression or anxiety, in my case BPD. Distraction techniques, so that you're doing it less and less and less and less. So you implement these distraction techniques, these alternatives, whenever you can. You really try your best. Bearing in mind this took me like 5 years, so I'm not saying if you like use the distraction techniques you're going to be cured like just like that. But yeah, it was a combination of therapy, using the distraction techniques that I'd learned in therapy, and basically just breaking the habit. Because how do I explain this? The combination of my distraction techniques and therefore doing it less, and then me recovering on the whole. So I was recovering with my illness anyway. I didn't get as depressed as I did before. I didn't struggle as much with my triggers. I had methods in place on how to react to my triggers. So basically, I don't know if any of that made sense, but throughout my distraction techniques, keeping myself occupied when I felt the urge to self-harm, just really trying to do anything but self-harm, and then also recovering along the side, you kind of tackle the addiction and also like the mental stuff that goes behind it, if that makes sense. And also things like speaking to friends about it when I felt the urge. I have some really supportive friends. Also having nothing near me that I could use. That's what the hospital advised my parents to do when I was on leave or came home from hospital, is to hide all the sharps, and still to this day we have it. We have a locked meds cabinet. Sometimes you may be like, oh no, I don't really have anything to do much damage with, so like what's the point? Other times you'll literally use anything that you can find. Next question, do you think there's a point when you feel ready to stop? No. To be quite honest, no. I know people that document everything to do with their self-harm, so like how long they've been clean in between instances, the date that they stop self-harming altogether. My issue is with this is that it will, yes, it's great to track progress, but I feel like it would make me more disappointed if I knew that it was so many days and that I'd broken that. And so I just think it's kind of like a gradual transition. Well, for me, I just kind of stopped and that was it. There was no like, yay, she stopped self-harming. So I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on yourself. It was just kind of like, okay, yeah, like I've stopped doing it so often, and then really, no, not doing it. And all of a sudden I was like 3 years clean. So I don't know, other people may feel differently, but that's how it was for me. How do you learn to love your self-harm scars? Now this is a difficult one. For me, I like to see them of a symbol of the pain that I have managed to survive. I know this is so cheesy, but see them as battle scars rather than something wrong with me. Like for me, quite often I forget like to compare myself to where I was, say like 3 or 4 years ago, and I compare myself to unrealistic standards. And so I actually think my self-harm scars act as a very good reminder as to how far I've come. And you need to remember that there are so many people in your position. There's literally nothing to be ashamed of. They're a part of your body and you should love them because they show you your strength. Next question, is it normal to be scared to stop self-harming? Yes, like this is totally normal. It's kind of like, well, what am I gonna do when I stop self-harming? Like, because if it becomes such a huge part of your life, it's like, it's an addiction. So like any addiction, you're gonna feel lost without it, or hopefully you won't. I mean, I definitely don't. It's your coping mechanism. So of course, when you think about not having that coping mechanism there, yeah, like that's scary. But this is why it's so important in your self-harm recovery to implement other ways of coping, your coping techniques, your distraction techniques, your alternatives. You want to build them up so you don't notice as much. Like I said, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I've been like 3 years clean now, cool. Honestly, it's not as scary, and life without self-harm is far better than life with self-harm, I'll tell you that. Do you self-harm when you're happy? I might have sometimes in the past, but that's only because I guess it's addictive, and you get addictive to like the very short-lived rush that self-harm gives you, which is definitely not worth it, by the way. If you are self-harming when you're happy, it may well be down to a manic episode linking to something like bipolar or BPD, so you might want to go and check that out. Next question. When was the last time you self-harmed? So I wish I could say this was like 2016, but I seem to be going through a really weird mood at the moment where I'm generally fine, but I self-harmed like 2 weeks ago. It's really bizarre. I'm not really sure why I do it. Well, actually I am, but I'm not going to say it on camera. yeah, I've had a couple of blips recently, like, because if you've watched my videos over Christmas, you'll have seen I had a relapse, and just, yeah, I think, well, it was when I was drunk, so obviously I wasn't thinking straight. How to respond to stupid questions about my self-harm scars. You don't have to respond at all. Like, you literally do not have to answer any question that anybody asks you about yourself. You literally owe nothing to the person that's asking. You can always politely say, I don't feel comfortable answering that, or you can tell them the truth and then hopefully they will shut up, or you can just make up a ridiculous story. This is what I always say, and I think there was a question on what to say to people when they notice your scars, and this is what I always say: be as honest as possible and say that you struggled with it in the past, or you can make up a completely ridiculous story that's obviously not true and say you got attacked by a bush or attacked by a bear. All of the above I used to use. Next question. Bear with me, I'm sorry, I know this is so long. How do you deal with urges when you haven't self-harmed in years but still feel the need? What to do instead? Obviously this is like very relevant to me right now, as per the question just gone. What I do is use distraction techniques. I remember that it's literally not even worth my time or my energy to do it. I feel like the aftermath, so like my boyfriend will get very, very, very worried because he wasn't with me when I was really ill. So anything, any self-harm, he panics and he's like, oh my God, is she going like back to how she was? I don't want to put him through that. So I just think like, Maddie, just ride this wave of how you're feeling, do something else more productive. Remember how far you've come. Like literally go and eat some ice cream and do something far nicer than self-harming, because it's just not worth it. How to overcome triggers. Number one, learn what they are, obviously. That's the most important. Learn how you feel, like learn what the process is with your body and your thinking, your emotions. Like maybe even draw out a flowchart of what happens when you get triggered, and learn to stop it in the very, very beginning instead of when you start overthinking and it is just spiraled out of control and you're in the red zone. And just basically work out the best ways that calm yourself down. And remember that it's all about how you react to the trigger. Like the triggers are always going to be there, but you've just got to learn to not let them get the better of you. What would your family and friends say when they saw your cuts? To be honest, I don't think my friends would say much unless they were like self-harmers themselves or whatever, and then, you know, they'd have the conversation and say what happened, or they'd probably know because I'd probably have told them beforehand. My mum, she knew that there was nothing she could do, so she just used to look at my arm and be like, sad face. Yeah, she kind of knew not to shame me because that would make it worse. And I actually did get a question: how to tell your parents that stopping you from self-harming is going to have a worse effect on your mental health. This is really important. When I first read it, I was kind of like, what? And then I was like, oh my God, yeah, I totally get it. Obviously, when you see your child doing that, you want to do everything in your power to stop them. But I think what parents need to realise is that they can help and support their children, but they can't stop the self-harming for them, if you know what I mean. I would encourage parents to hide all the sharps and the dangerous objects in the house, because I found that helped me. And you obviously, when you want to self-harm, you're not happy about it, but trust me, it will help you in the long run. I think that you need to explain to them that you're going to do it anyway, like no matter what they say to you or how much they try and stop you. I mean, they could be helpful in the case that you go to them when you're feeling like you're going to self-harm, but if they're constantly checking up on you and just like saying, oh, don't self-harm, don't do that, yeah. So I just think you need to tell them, like, look, mum or dad, it's down to me to recover and to tackle this, and this is what you can do to support me, but please do not shame me and make me feel even more guilty than I do, because it's just not going to help me. Next question: did being an inpatient make your self-harm worse? I think it did, because basically when you go inpatient, you are exposed to loads of different forms of self-harm that you wouldn't necessarily have been exposed to at home unless you had a private account on Instagram, which I didn't. I literally had no idea that psychiatric units even existed. So I went in kind of naive and just basically, I didn't pick, oh, just pull my eyelash out, whoops. that must have been a loose one. I didn't necessarily pick up any of these self-harm methods, but I did think, oh, maybe I should be doing these to show how serious I am. And then afterwards, I don't know whether this was because of inpatient or because I wasn't in inpatient, so I didn't know what to do, but my self-harm got the worst it had ever been, like the 2 years after inpatient, so I don't know. Okay, the final question is an interesting one. If you've got this far in the Q&A, then congrats to you. But it is an interesting topic, and I did say, because I got this question in my mental health Q&A that I did the other week, and it was, how did you / do you feel like your scars / cuts aren't bad enough or as bad as others, and we're feeling like you need it to be worse and worse? I literally, in the comments, I had so many people saying that they felt the same. Comparison in the world of self-harm is like just one of the most annoying things, especially with like private Instagram accounts. So I know it's like a good place to vent, but honestly, that is what made me worse, because you wouldn't come into contact with it in like day-to-day life. Well, you might do, you maybe might see someone with worse scars than you, but when the internet comes into play, literally some of the stuff that you can easily have access to on Instagram is not okay. And I get that people are unwell, but posting pictures like that is just not helpful to anyone. So number one, yes, I do feel like this a lot of the time, and I actually spoke to my psychiatrist about it this morning, because I said I feel like I'm a fraud, because I feel like my suicide attempts weren't as serious as others, my self-harm isn't as serious as others. And he just said to me, Maddie, you cannot measure human suffering. Very profound, but it's true, you can't measure how much someone has suffered, and it's all very what's the word, subjective. Please do not compare yourself and your situation to other people, because I'm telling you, any suffering is worthy. And it's almost like, where do you stop with who you compare yourself to? So okay, you're comparing your cuts with someone who has worse cuts. Or like, what's the next step? Do you want to compare yourself to someone who had cuts that bad that they lost their life? Like, is that really what you want? And fair enough, it may well be for some of you, but honestly, there is a never-ending stream of people you could compare yourself to, and who I do and could compare myself to. But I kind of think, like, why do you have to be the illest to get support and help? You don't. There's this whole culture of trying to be the illest, and like in people's recovery accounts they put like inpatient times 10. You know, someone that's not ever been in inpatient but still suffered with mental illness, their suffering is just as notable as someone who's been inpatient 10-20 times. Like, it is not a competition. And I honestly hate it in these recovery accounts on Instagram where it's like, nearly lost my life like this many times. Like, who cares? All I care about is that you're struggling, you deserve help. Your self-harm scars don't have to be hospital worthy. They don't have to be anything worthy. For you to harm yourself and for you to want to do that to yourself, that is enough. Like, that just shows you, unless you're following a stupid trend on the internet, that just shows that you're unwell enough to consider something like that. So yes, like, every cut and every situation is worthy of help. Please do not compare them. It's such an interesting topic, and I feel like I definitely do need to make a video on this, because I think especially among teenage girls it is such a huge situation. And that is the end of that. Sorry, I got a little bit passionate there. Anyway, on that note, I hope you found this helpful. I definitely found it helpful. I feel like I've got a lot off my chest now. Do let me know if you want me to do any more Q&As. Do give this video a thumbs up if it did help you, and if you're not already subscribed, then now is your time to click the button down below. I'm sending so much love to you if you are in the midst of self-harm. Don't worry, it will get better. Even if you relapse, it doesn't matter. And yeah, I'll see you in Thursday's video. Goodbye!